Thank you for joining us. My name is Charlotte Flores, and I am the Director of Events here at Dysautonomia International. I have the honor of being the host for tonight's webinar. So we have a few housekeeping notes before we begin. Your video and microphones will not be on during the Zoom webinar. If you would like to use the closed captioning, you can refer to the bottom of your Zoom screen and choose the CC Live Transcript option. You can choose how you wish to view the closed captionings on your personal device. And if you want to just turn that feature off, there is a small area next to the CC button that says hide subtitles. So you'll just click that. We want you to ask questions tonight. Our speakers are excited to answer them, but make sure that you are asking questions that are relevant to the subjects that we're covering. You can do that through the Zoom Q&A tool that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. So you can just type in a question and then we will go through and work on answering them. We'll try to get as many answered as possible. And we're unable to address your personal medical advice questions. So just keep that in mind. If it's something really personal or something confidential, you wouldn't want to share it here. If we do answer your question, then your name will pop up next to the question too. So just consider that when you're asking a question. So we appreciate you joining us tonight to learn more about ABLE accounts. We have some great guest speakers, and they are Sarah Hart-Weir and Mark Raymond Jr. And Sarah Hart-Weir is a national ABLE expert. She's a nonprofit executive and a disability activist. Weir is the former president and CEO of the National Down Syndrome Society, the NDSS, where during her tenure at NDSS, she led the passage of the landmark bipartisan Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience, ABLE Act, in 2014. Weir also supported a majority of the enactment of the ABLE state laws. She assisted with over 40 state ABLE plan launches, as well as led efforts to expand ABLE to include the Able to Work Act and the ABLE Financial Planning Act. Sarah is a graduate of Westminster College and has a Master of Science from Carnegie Mellon University's Heinz College. And then our second speaker is Mark Raymond Jr. He's the CEO and founder of the Split Second Foundation, an organization committed to breaking barriers for people with disabilities. Mark's life changed in a split second when a tragic accident left him a C5 quadriplegic. That tick of the clock will forever influence who he is, pushing him to advocate for others. Mark has a deep-rooted history of serving the community, from renaming historic streets and landmarks in New Orleans to creating a more accessible and robust rehabilitative health infrastructure in the Gulf South. Mark strives for the advancement of those most disadvantaged. Mark also serves as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners for the Regional Transit Authority in New Orleans. We are so excited to have you here tonight to talk about ABLE accounts. Welcome, Sarah and Mark.
Thank you, Charlotte. We are very excited to be with you this evening. As you heard, I'm hailing from the great state of Kansas. We are just above negative temperatures here in Kansas City, and then Mark's in a little bit more of a warmer climate. We give him a hard time for that. He is in New Orleans. So we're really excited to be here with you this evening to talk about our favorite subject, and that is ABLE accounts. And we represent and support an organization called ABLE Today. And as you see here on the screen, we are really focused on promoting free education and outreach related to ABLE accounts, with the goal of expanding financial empowerment and community inclusion for people with disabilities. Thank you again, Charlotte, for that lovely introduction. We also want to make sure that you all have links to our website, abletoday.org. We have plenty of resources and information on abletoday.org related to ABLE accounts, how to access your ABLE account in the state that you live in, how ABLE accounts interact with any of your SSA benefits or Medicaid. And then, as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, work for organizations or employers, we're doing a lot more to educate employers and HR professionals about how ABLE can be a workplace benefit. So I have the luxury of teaming up with Mark tonight for this presentation, and really excited about all of the questions and all of the feedback that you'll have for us around ABLE. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let Mark jump right in, and I'm going to play Vanna in the Q&A chat box here with Charlotte as questions pop up. So Mark, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sarah. And it's not so warm here, so I'm trying to not have many fire pits, but it's a balmy 28 degrees down in New Orleans. But thank you everybody for taking some time to learn about ABLE. Again, Sarah and I get to do this work through ABLE Today, which is an initiative under the National Association of State Treasurers. But as you mentioned, we are really laser focused on promoting ABLE accounts and financial inclusion for people with disabilities, family members, and caregivers. Leading us to this slide, who's this presentation for? It's for people who have a disability, the family member of a person with a disability, or caregiver, and really anybody who wants to represent the disability benefits providers, representative payee, and financial advisors, or even trust lawyers. Sarah and I give these presentations frequently to a multitude of different audiences. But I would imagine you all are mostly folks with disabilities and family members and caregivers. Sarah, you can go to our next slide. We like to center this presentation around two examples. Amanda, who's a 13-year-old girl whose parents are worried about her financial security in the future. And they want to figure out a way that they could support their child as they go through life. And Dalton, who's a 34-year-old with a developmental disability. He currently receives SSI and uses that for his monthly rent. He wants to one day purchase a home though. So Dalton cannot, before ABLE, Dalton could not save up money for a down payment without having to put it in another family member's account or be very creative. He didn't have a way to keep that money in his own name. But Dalton wants to plan for his future and keep his benefits. So imagine if people with disabilities could save more money in their names than just $2,000. And what that would be able to do from a point of wealth creation without losing the eligibility for benefits and working without having to spend down their current or future income, moving them from a monthly financial plan to a lifetime financial plan. ABLE accounts have made this possible. And that was through the 2016, Sarah, you can go to the next slide. I'm sorry, the ABLE Act was passed in 2014, adding ABLE accounts under Section 529A of the US Tax Code. It was signed into law, and then the first ABLE account programs started, or ABLE programs started to pop up in states like Ohio, Florida, but Ohio, I do believe, was the first. Now there are 46 ABLE programs throughout the United States and the District of Columbia, with upwards of 160,000 total accounts and $1.5 billion in nationwide ABLE account savings, which is a huge upgrade from where we were just 2 years ago. Sarah's job and my job are to expand the understanding of ABLE, because even though 160,000 accounts is a lot, it's still only 2% of the eligible accounts nationwide, i.e. 8 million people are currently eligible to have an ABLE account, and we only have 160,000 total accounts. Next slide. So the key benefits to ABLE are getting away from a short-term spending plan and moving to a long-term savings plan, the opportunity for financial empowerment and community inclusion, being able to control your finances and your destiny, getting away from a spend down mentality, and having an alternative to save that money in your name. Ownership is key to ABLE accounts. The person with the disability is the owner, no matter who the administrator of the account may be. These accounts are easy to use, open, close, and they operate very similar to a regular bank account, but they have tax benefits, tax-free earnings, and state tax deductions and credits. Next slide, Sarah. I'm going kind of fast. It looks like we have a question too. So who's eligible? Currently, a person with a disability that has a long-term disability onset before the age of 26 is eligible for an ABLE account. What does that mean? That means that if you're 46 years old, but you found out that you had a long-term disability that could have been onset as a child, you are eligible for an ABLE account. I had an accident when I was 27 years old, which resulted in a long-term disability. I have a spinal cord injury. So I was not eligible for an ABLE account as of yet. But thanks to the ABLE Age Adjustment Act, which was passed in last year's Congress, the eligibility age of ABLE will now move from 26 to 46, effective January 2026. So if you're like me and you didn't have a long-term disability before age 26, you will have the opportunity to have an ABLE account in a few more years. Next slide, Sarah. Okay, how can you open an ABLE account? All of the state programs have an easy to open ABLE account via website. You can find all of those programs on our website, abletoday.org/able-programs. There you will see this page that's pictured with the state programs. You just click your state. They'll have state-specific information, the enrollment fee, and maybe even some information about investment benefits, and also a link to that state's ABLE program page. Again, these enrollments are very flexible and intentionally so that a person with a disability can set it up or a caregiver. Next slide, Sarah. So who can serve as an ABLE account support person? The person with a disability can open and administer an ABLE account, but let's say they aren't capable of managing it themselves. They can have an attorney manage it, a conservator, a guardian, a spouse, a parent or sibling in a lot of cases, or grandparent, or a representative payee. The key here is that the account still belongs to the person with the disability. Next slide, Sarah. So going back to Amanda, who now has an option for her financial future. Her mom opens the account for her in about 20 minutes online. Amanda is listed as the account owner, but her mom is listed as the support person and will make all the day-to-day management decisions for the account, whether that's depositing funds, using funds, investing funds. Her mother is responsible for handling all of those activities of the account on Amanda's behalf. Next slide. Drum roll, please. So how can you get money into your ABLE account? Again, these operate just like a regular bank account, so you can deposit money electronically or by check. Most programs allow for payroll deductions and e-gifting as well. But another really cool option is, let's say your parents had a 529 college savings account and you had a disability after you went to college, or those funds never got used. They can roll over into a 529 ABLE account. So that's another great benefit to this program. How much can you contribute annually to your ABLE account? This is always a great space where we have questions and answers. But if you aren't working, if you're unemployed, you can contribute up to $18,000 annually. If you are working, you can contribute an additional $14,580, totaling $32,580 if you are employed. The balance limits on most of these programs is around $400,000. However, it does differ state by state, and you'll find that a lot of all of the states operate programs that are really similar, but they have slight differences. Next slide, please. Specifically around balance limits, fees, and things like that. Whether they have a spend down or a debit card option to spend fundings, things like that are varied. Or if there's the Medicaid clawback, we'll get into all of that stuff later. Going back to Dalton again, who has an ABLE account and is contributing to his ABLE account. Dalton can contribute that additional $14,800, $80 because he's working. He also uses the e-gifting feature and receives $5,000 annually from family and friends. So again, before ABLE accounts, Dalton's resource limit was $2,000 a month. He couldn't have more than $2,000 a month in assets in his name. Now with an ABLE account, he has saved $19,580 in 6 months, 7 months. Next slide, Sarah, if I'm doing the math correctly. But his total limit would be the 34 number. The annual cost of ABLE accounts differs, again, state by state, but they range from $0 to $60. And then the asset-based fees for managing the investment side ranges from 0 to 0.9%, again, depending by the state. So one of the cool things about ABLE accounts is the investment options. Most ABLE accounts offer multiple places to store your money and can operate like a checking or savings. But going back to that investment option, if you do choose that, you'll see the different market-based investment options as you're going through creating the ABLE account. I believe there's Vanguard ETFs and Fidelity options, but again, that differs state by state. So that is something that you would want to do some research on and make sure you talk to your state's ABLE program staff to understand your options. So when they passed the ABLE Act, they wanted to be really broad with what the money could be spent on and came up with qualified disability expenses, which is anything that relates to the disability and helps maintain or improve health, independence, or quality of life. What does that look like? Well, your housing and rent expenses, your transportation to and from school or work, anything assistive technology related that will help boost your quality of life. Same thing with health and wellness, education, if you would like to go back to school, and even your basic living expenses, financial management, legal fees. All of these things are considered qualified disability expenses, again, under a really broad set of understanding of what will help maintain or improve the health, independence, or quality of life of a person with a disability. How can you withdraw money from your ABLE account? Again, different programs have various options. Some states only have a checkbook option. Some have debit cards or spend down cards. There is some states with third-party check options or just a simple bank transfer. But I believe most states have multiple options for withdrawing your funds from your ABLE account. Sarah, I'm going to let you come back in and take over for the special benefits rules. I'm fumbling.
Oh, Mark, you're making me have all the tough ones this evening. No, I've been fearlessly typing. Charlotte, I haven't seen this many excellent ABLE questions in a long time. So we have a very active, engaged audience, Mark, as you were walking through some of the various ins and outs of the ABLE program. We will certainly, Charlotte, come back to some of these because I think several of our audience members have very similar questions. And Mark, I'll let you get caught up there on the chat box, and we'll come back to them. But with that said, ABLE has really two overarching what we call special benefits rules related to SSI and Medicaid. So on the left-hand side of the screen, if you're an individual or you're a caregiver supporting an individual who receives SSI, the really important benefit rule that you need to know is that once the account reaches $100,000 in assets, the SSI check, that monthly SSI check that you may be receiving, is just suspended. Now, I call this, and I've worked on this legislation and shepherding the ABLE Act through the Capitol Hill process for many, many years. And so we started working on this in 2006, 2007. I often refer to this as the SSI threshold. So if your account reaches $110,000, and I saw, Mark, a great question in the chat box about somebody who was potentially saving up for a car or to purchase a home. So in the instance you purchase a home and you utilize, $60,000 out of your ABLE account to purchase that home, your balance would go under that $100,000, and therefore your SSI monthly check would be reinstated. So you never lose eligibility. It's just up to you as the individual or you as the family to decide, do you want to accumulate more assets in that ABLE account because you are saving for a home or a vehicle modification. And then once that money goes under that $100,000, that check is reinstated. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen, and this is one of the reasons why we work so hard to pass this legislation in Congress and set up ABLE programs state by state, is that ABLE never protects the assets in your ABLE account, never protect your I can't talk. I've had way too much coffee today. The assets in an ABLE account never impact your Medicaid eligibility. So a lot of the accounts, as Mark pointed out, a lot of the state programs have upwards of $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 lifetime limits. Your Medicaid is never impacted. And that was really why we started to work on this legislation many, many years ago. And now the ABLE program exists. So that's just two important special benefits rules that we wanted to point out. Now, we had a number of great questions early on, Charlotte, in the presentation related to the various kind of financial vehicles that are out there to support individuals with disabilities. And oftentimes we get this question, what if I have or I'm considering opening up a special needs trust? And our answer is pretty straightforward. Great. If you are in a financial position, or you or your family are in a financial position to have a special needs trust and an ABLE account, we definitely encourage you to have both. As you see here on the screen, special needs trusts can accept larger annual deposits than an ABLE account, as Mark did a great job of outlining the different contribution limits for ABLE accounts, the $18,000 annual contribution, and then if the individual is working, they can contribute an amount up to the federal poverty line. Special needs trusts allow greater deposits depending on if they're a first party or a third party trust to be deposited on an annual basis. And then people and individuals and families frequently put large deposits into a trust, and then they regularly transfer money into an ABLE account for easier access. So we really intended for these two financial vehicles to work together. We feel strongly that ABLE accounts complement that trust. And down below, you see just 6 very broad examples of how ABLE accounts complement trusts. One, as Mark pointed out, the fees for ABLE accounts are so low They are far less expensive than opening up a special needs trust, which on the next bullet here points out that you typically have to have an attorney help you orchestrate and open up that special needs trust. With an ABLE account, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to go online and open up that account. You can buy more things. So Mark did a great job of presenting my favorite slide, which are the disability qualified expenses. You have a lot of purchasing power and flexibility as long as you can demonstrate that expense improves the individual with a disability's quality of life, hence disability qualified expenses. It can be utilized for the ABLE account purposes. Again, as Mark pointed out, we always encourage an ABLE account or a potential ABLE account holder to research your in-state ABLE program first. I know that link was in the presentation, but I'm going to drop it in the chat here momentarily, because a lot of our states, when their state legislatures moved to start their ABLE programs, created some really nice tax benefits or tax deductions or tax credits based on individuals contributing to ABLE accounts, very similar to some of those tax deductions and credits that exist for the traditional 529 program. Another important aspect of an ABLE account versus a special needs trust, and something that was really important to us when we were navigating the Capitol Hill landscape to get this legislation across the finish line, is that the individual with a disability is actually the account owner, meaning one ABLE account, one individual. And so from a self-determination perspective and an independence perspective, the individual with a disability owns the account, which is really important. And, as we strive for more opportunities and more advocacy movements to allow individuals with disabilities to make their own decisions, including how money in the ABLE account can be spent. So that's a little bit about the broad intersection between ABLE and special needs trusts. We also offer numerous ways to learn more about ABLE, and I know we're going to stop here and answer some questions. But on our website, abletoday.org, we have all of this information in a very hopefully easy to use, easy to digest system. And we'll put that link in the chat here as well. I saw a great question. Can we get a copy of the slides? Absolutely. We also have this presentation deck easily accessible on our website. So we certainly encourage you to not only download a copy of our presentation, but utilize our website as a resource for any questions that may come up in the future. We also do a number of these presentations throughout the week. So if you'd like to request a presentation, certainly you can reach out to us directly as well. More links to more of just our resources. We tend to get a lot of questions about how ABLE accounts intersect with your SSA benefits, whether that's SSI or SSDI. Not to get too wonky, we'll leave that responsibility to Charlotte and others that run the foundation, but we have tons of resources on ABLE and the federal regulations, ABLE and how you can promote ABLE accounts as a workplace benefit, working with your employer, which we work hard on each and every single day. And then we have more just learning modules that are also available at abletoday.org. Charlotte, I am going to stop there. I'll probably have Mark come back here on the screen. And I know we have some open questions, but I'll turn it over to you to maybe jump in and ask a few. And I could probably also start to address some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah,
I know, what'd you say, Mark?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I've been trying to keep up with the questions in the chat.
Yeah, I think we've all been reading through all your questions. They're really great. Keep them coming. We will
Yes.
go over some of these answers out loud too, just in case you haven't had a chance to read some of the things in the chat. I know one of the questions that I just saw asked that I thought was really good is what would you need to be included in a qualifying doctor's note if you're not already on receiving disability? And I think that's pretty common for some of our patients, that they need to figure out how do they actually qualify for this. So Mark, I know you gave the short answer. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think you just need a doctor's note that reflects what the disability is and when the onset of the disability began. Right, that's the two critical pieces of information that state ABLE programs need to certify that you are eligible. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry for the short answer. I'm typing with one finger.
And Mark's absolutely right. So we wanted to make sure that individuals, depending on where they are in their lives, if you weren't in need of accessing SSI, SSDI, or even Medicaid at one point in your life, but may need those benefits in the future, we didn't want to preclude that from somebody with a disability starting to open up and invest in their ABLE account, as quickly as possible. So Mark pointed this out, but the most important thing is you do not need to be on benefits to open up an ABLE account. That definition of disability just helps guide who is eligible. And Charlotte, to your question and to the question in the chat, it's a simple doctor's note indicating your diagnosis, and as Mark said, when the diagnosis occurred or the onset of the disability occurred. I know ABLE really is a financial tool that impacts people, across the disability spectrum. And so while you might get that diagnosis of disability, maybe I always give the example of MS. So you get diagnosed maybe as a young woman with MS at the age of 28 or 29, but you did have that genetic predisposition to MS, meaning you could, with a doctor's help, demonstrate that onset of disability had already occurred before age 26, allowing you to open up an ABLE account. So there's a lot of flexibility given some of the genetic predisposition to disability. And if folks have any questions or need more information and want to feel more comfortable reaching out to us individually or setting up a call, we're always happy to do that to help folks just answer more questions.
Great. I know when we announced the webinar, we had a couple of people comment how excited they were that the age limit was about to go up when we get to 2026. Somebody else is asking, is there like a long-term goal to make this accessible to all ages? And is that something that you guys are involved in working on?
That is a great question, Mark. We never stop advocating, do we?
Yeah. I'm pretty much with the collective on it should be open to everyone, and it is something that we advocate for both individually and collectively. Got to keep moving the needle.
Yeah.
Yes. But one of the things that's really not in our slide deck, but I think it is a fascinating kind of case study on taking a relatively new program like ABLE through the legislative process. We've actually reformed ABLE, 4 times federally. We've improved it since 2014 when President Obama signed it into law. First, we eliminated the state residency requirement. So initially in the original ABLE Act, you had to open up an ABLE account in the state you lived in. Well, we quickly heard from advocates, and we do listen and work with advocates all across the country, that some states didn't have the resources to start their own ABLE programs. And so we shared that with our congressional champions, and we eliminated the state residency requirement, except for if anybody's tuning in from 3 great states, Maine, Florida, and Texas, according to your state law, you can only access those in-state programs. So Florida, Maine, and Texas are in-state. You have to live in that state to open up an ABLE account, whereas all the other state programs have the flexibility to go across your state lines. But again, Mark and I always encourage folks to research your in-state program because there are some really great tax benefits, as I pointed out earlier. And then we added some significant improvements to ABLE to allow for the able to work opportunity that Mark described, where the working adult with a disability can actually contribute up to the federal poverty line on top of what family members and others can give. So that's this slide here that talks about the annual contribution vis-a-vis if you're employed. And around that same time, we actually allowed, we passed legislation that allows you to transfer if you have a traditional 529 and you get that diagnosis of disability a little later in life, but you have some assets in that 529, or maybe potentially college is not an option. You can roll those monies in your traditional 529 into your ABLE account without any tax penalty or consequence. And then, of course, Mark talked about our favorite most recent update, and that's the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. So we are always looking for ways to improve and working with folks kind of in the trenches on their experiences to see what we can do nationally.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think advocacy work is so difficult and is such a long-term vision that you have to have, that I hope everyone at home will join me in a round of applause. Woo! For all of the incredible work you've been doing. Thank you. We really appreciate it as a community. Kind of connected to that, someone said, if their initial social SSI application resulted in a medically disabled designation, but they didn't qualify for financial assistance, is this letter sufficient to qualify them for an ABLE account?
Yes, as long as you meet that definition, and I'll go back to that slide here. As long as you're meeting that definition of SSA, the disability definition under this long-term kind of, I guess, point 2, you would qualify for an ABLE account. And again, if you have any issues or you want to run anything by us on your specific situation, you know, you can reach out to Mark and me via email and or set up a phone call.
Great. We have somebody who's a parent who's saying that they live in Maine, but their daughter lives in New Hampshire, and she grew up in Maine. All the doctors are still located in Maine. Since Maine requires that residency, as you just mentioned, would she need to open an ABLE account in New Hampshire where she lives now, or would her mom open it in Maine where she grew up?
So if she's accessing services and lives in New Hampshire, you could certainly set up the New Hampshire ABLE account. Our colleague Eric worked on that program. The New Hampshire program just switched over to another national partnership. They have a fantastic program, and if you run into any issues, our colleague Chuck Sia works on the New Hampshire program, and we'd be happy to put you in touch with them. But as long as your son or daughter is living in New Hampshire and accessing services, we'd really encourage you to look at that program first.
Another person is asking if they are applying for SSI or SSDI for their daughter, is having an ABLE account going to kind of count against them going into it? And do they need to notify Social Security when they're going through that application process?
That is another great question. So you would have to notify the SSA if you are, applying for SSI or SSDI benefits, but none of the assets in your ABLE account can count toward you receiving those benefits. You have to think about, I think this is Gina's question. ABLE really is an asset shield. It protects your assets. So SSI or Medicaid could never come back and say any of those assets in your ABLE account is going to count toward your eligibility for one of those other benefits. They're really supposed to work together. And if you run into any issues, which you shouldn't, let us know. But you would just say, yes, we have an ABLE account in XYZ state, but they can't do anything about it because those assets are protected. That's a great question.
This next question gets into a little bit of specifics, but I think it might apply to some other parents that are on the call. So they have an adult child who receives SSI and struggles with mental health and substance issues, and they don't currently have power of attorney to help manage finances. Would you suggest parents in a situation like that seeking to receive powers of attorney so that they can open an ABLE account for their son? And are there any issues related to that?
So again, another great question. Mark went through, and Mark, please jump in here, kind of the hierarchy of who can help support and serve as that ABLE account support person. This is really the hierarchy of what has come out through the federal regulations process. Your guardianship and how you choose to identify who serves as that support person don't necessarily need to be the same. I was working with one of our state treasurer offices today on a situation where the 21-year-old it doesn't have parents don't have guardianship over her. But on the ABLE account specifically, mom has power of attorney. So they don't necessarily need to match up. And, I would encourage you, with your 28-year-old son, to have that discussion or figure out when it comes to the financial matters, when you go to open up an ABLE account in Louisiana or Kansas or Maine, you could check that box and have access to your son's ABLE account if that's what you choose to do. And again, that's a great question. Happy to walk through any of those scenarios too, Charlotte, with anybody individually.
So along the lines of trying to figure out how you're going to set up an account and what you want to do, someone is asking, how do they find a financial advisor that really knows about ABLE account investing? And is there a specific title or certification that they should be looking for?
Oh, Mark, I'm going to drop us down to this slide. So again, with an ABLE account, you do not need a financial advisor or a lawyer, any kind of expertise in any of those different worlds to open up an ABLE account. You, as the individual with the disability or the parent or caregiver, can go online. Again, research your in-state program first, see what tax benefits, may exist and if that's the right account for you. And then you can go online, do the enrollment process, 10, 15 minutes. And then most of our states, depending on where you live, offer little quizzes or tools. Do you want to be a little bit more aggressive? If you choose to invest some of your ABLE account funds into an investment vehicle, do you want to be more conservative? It allows you to walk through that process again, just like a 529, and make the right decisions for you. I always say, and this is the slide that Mark presented earlier, an ABLE account really is a 3-in-1 account. You have the investments, the checking and savings, and it's up to you as the individual or you with your family to decide, how those funds are invested or spent. And it also depends on, where you are in your lifespan, to the great question earlier about somebody saving up for a car or a home purchase. You might want to be a little bit more aggressive with how you choose to invest your funds in order to get to your financial goal a little bit faster. If you're an individual, as Charlotte pointed out, I've done a lot of work in my career in the Down syndrome community. If you're an individual who's, post-working, maybe you're, in your late 40s or 50s, and, you're talking about a situation where, mom or dad maybe, aren't here anymore. The way you utilize your ABLE account might be a little bit more different than somebody who is born with Down syndrome tomorrow. And so it's kind of up to the individual On the financial advisor question, there are plenty of financial advisors that specialize in, special needs trusts and working with families all across the country. And if you are looking for somebody like that, we'd be happy to put you in touch with an expert that kind of knows guardianship, special needs trust, ABLE accounts. Mark and I present with a number of these individuals and subject matter experts all across the country. But just want to preface it, Charlotte, by saying, you don't need a financial advisor to open up an ABLE account. We really wanted this to be a financial tool that was kind of at the palm of your hands to be able to access and make your own decisions without all that bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's great. I love how accessible it is. I know somebody asked in the chat, what about the recordings from today and the PDF? So like with all of our webinars, within the next 2 weeks, we will send you out a copy of the recording. There's nothing you need to do. You're already registered for it. And we'll send with that the PDF of the slides from tonight so that you have access to those. And I think Mark was the one that mentioned too, if you just can't wait and you need access today, you can go to their website as well. And that's in the chat. And then you can see the recording, not this specific recording, but you can see the PDF and the slide deck.
I linked one of our YouTube intro videos. So a lot of this information is repeated, but we have other YouTube videos too. I'm trying to keep up with the questions. I would add though, like we do, I know I do like advise certain individuals, like if you are interested in investing, you don't need a financial advisor that knows ABLE, but someone who can explain the investment options better. Like we are not financial advisors, so we don't point or direct anyone on how they should invest their money. Because I do know one of the questions was specific to like percentages of the investment options, and that's where things can get a little tricky, and you want to seek as much information as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Google is also a great source for information. So
I know you mentioned too, to another question that was asked, if it costs to transfer from the trust to the ABLE account, and you said no, it doesn't cost.
That's correct. And I think we've gotten that question before, right, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have.
There's no cost associated with moving money.
A lot of people will, depending on where they are again in their financial situation, if you have a first party trust, or maybe mom and dad are no longer here and they've set it up in a way where, each year the trust will deposit $10,000 a year into their ABLE account. And that automatically happens, on January 15th. Today's the 16th, January 16th of every year. And there's a lot of flexibility for individuals and families to set up that structure.
Great. I know Rachel has a very interesting question. So is an ABLE account, and she's speaking specifically about Illinois, a payback type of account, where if the ABLE account holder passes away and they were on SSI and Medicaid, does that remaining money go back to the state, or does it stay with their next of kin? Do you know how that works?
Great question, Rachel. I looked this up as you were posting that question here. So in the federal legislation, it was not something we loved, but it was certainly something that a couple disability organizations encouraged us to include, and that's what it's called, the Medicaid clawback, or the Medicaid payback, as you referenced it. Meaning when the individual with the disability passes away, if that individual accessed Medicaid funds during their lifetime, during that period they were on Medicaid, any funds left over in an ABLE account will go back to pay Medicaid. Now, because that wasn't a very popular provision, again, which we really didn't love, many states, almost 20 states, have actually moved away and have, at the state level, eliminated their Medicaid clawback, including Illinois. So this is not something you would have to worry about in Illinois, and hopefully does not deter you from opening or accessing an ABLE account. Many states have moved away from this, including both of the states that Mark and I are from Arkansas, California, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Maryland, Nebraska, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia. And I have a call on Friday because Vermont is also working on some state legislation. Ultimately, Charlotte, to your point earlier in the discussion, we could see this being something that also improves ABLE, and we'd like to see, obviously, with a federal elimination. So we certainly don't want that to deter people from opening up ABLE accounts today.
Thank you. I think that is kind of, we're wrapping up here on our questions. If anybody else has time, we might be able to get one more in if you've got anything else you want to submit before our speakers leave tonight. But thank you. I think, yeah, and somebody else is agreeing with me. Thank you so much for the advocacy. I think it's really been an interesting presentation. People have learned a lot tonight and are excited about it. Okay, here's a good one. So if your child has an ABLE account in one town or one state, and then they move across state lines to somewhere else, do they have to start a new account in the new state? Do they transfer over? How does that all work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was Joy's question. I was just typing away. You absolutely, again, with no tax consequence, tax benefit, can transfer your ABLE account from Texas to Washington. And if you run into any issues, Mark and I can also ensure that you are connected with the state ABLE program director in both of those states to make it a very seamless, smooth transition. But we wanted to have that kind of state portability when we worked on ABLE to allow families to have that flexibility. And two awesome states to have ABLE accounts, and we love working with Texas and Washington.
Thank you. All right, so that wraps us up for tonight. Thank you to everyone who attended. Speaking of advocacy, we are working on some of our own, so stay tuned to your emails and to our social media. We'll have some announcements coming up soon, and we are looking forward to the new year. We wish you a happy one, and we know that you at ABLE Today have a lot that you're working on, and we have a lot that we're trying to get accomplished this year. So thank you for giving us some of your time tonight.
Thank you so much for having us.